Love, Death and Robots is a very unique Netflix anthology sci-fi fantasy series. The mere fact that it exists is something special, because you will not find anything like this anywhere else. The closest thing to it I can come up with is Black Mirror show, which was totally awesome. The Black Mirror is better, but Love, Death and Robots is not really a copycat, so it's hard to compare them. First of all, Love, Death and Robots is not real life. It portrays a wide variety of very different animation styles. All the episodes are totally unique and represent completely unrelated stories. They are also short, from approximately 6 to 20 minutes long per episode, and this is my tier list of all of them at the moment. I will use tiers from D to S. I think this is enough, more tiers will just make this too complicated. Also, please be warned that there are heavy spoilers ahead. Let's start with the first season, which is longer than both other seasons together. That's a shame, because show is very cool and it would be nice to see more episodes. Sonys Edge is about something like underground illegal dogfights today, but it's in the future and these are giant monsters which are fighting. These monsters are not really alive, they are controlled by their owners, but these are not mechs. Monsters are biological and pilots are not inside of them but outside of the ring, just sitting there. They are connected with their pilot through some computer chip and Bluetooth or something like that. The main hero is a legendary fighter who hasn't lost a battle, and she is visited by some important man who wants her to lose the next battle for a large amount of money. She refuses the offer. Later the battle is depicted, but it has very nice animation and all this looks pretty cool. She of course wins the battle. After the battle, a woman companion of the bribing man tries to seduce our hero and kills her in real life. Then the man comes and he feels very pleased by getting rid of his opponent. But there is a big twist here which I really like. Our main hero is not really in her human body. Her actual consciousness is inside the monster. That's why she hasn't lost a battle. She would die if she lost a battle, and that gives her the edge to win everything. The murder of her human body happens in the monster room. She is actually this giant monster and she was controlling the human body. When this happens, she wakes up her monster body and kills the murderous man. This might be the best twist in whole series. This is visually and substantially great episode. It goes to S tier. Free Robots is a satire about post-apocalyptic world where all humans have died. These robots are exploring this place and having their opinions about human entertainment, their biology and world. There are a lot of witty jokes, but episode is actually pretty deep, because the reason of the apocalypse is revealed, and it wasn't some great disaster or war. It was slow destruction of our Earth because of pollution. They even visit an atomic bomb, but these were never used in the end. The end of our civilization was very anticlimactic and slow. I'm putting this episode in A tier. The Witness wasn't a very impressive episode. It's at the bottom, but not the worst. The episode is about a girl who witnesses a murder and then runs away from this murderer because he solved her. Things are weird because the victim was actually herself. Then this guy chases the girl until they get to the same room where the victim was murdered. Then our main girl kills this guy and sees that the clone guy witnessed this from the same room she was at the start. I understand the loop the witness was trying to create, but there were too many whys and no answers to them. Who are they? Why is this happening? Is this some kind of time loop or purgatory? Who knows? To me it felt more like a gimmick, not genuinely deep questions. The animation was interesting and unique though. It goes to C tier in my opinion. Suit's premise is pretty interesting. Farmers in mechs defending their lands from aliens. But the story was too straightforward and boring. There is a little bit of drama when someone dies and also some jokes. Episode tries to be heartwarming, but it is nothing more than that. It is literally a bunch of farmers fighting aliens. There is no explanation. Is this supposed to be Earth or other planet, and why this is happening? I think that Suits is better than The Witness, but not by much. It goes to B tier. Sucker of Souls is the next episode. It's about a group of mercenaries who are guarding scientists in archaeological site. Then they discover a vampire colony and the real Dracula. In the end they all get killed and that's it. This episode is bad. It's all about some tough talk and action. Animation is pretty good, but story is basically non-existent. I really didn't like this one. It goes to D tier. When the Yogurt Took Over is once again a bad episode, but in a different way. Its premise is literally the name of the episode. Scientists create an intelligence in yogurt, which becomes this all-knowing oracle. Just like some computer program AI, only it's not a program but literally lives in a yogurt. The similarity is that this intelligence is not some alone example, it lives in all yogurts. Just like program can be installed in all computers. There of course are some implications that people are the worst, because government can't follow yogurt's directions and save the economy. Then yogurt decides to leave Earth and questions remain. Why people weren't once exploring space? Why yogurt was the one who exceeded us? This question targets the bad side of humanity. The episode is clearly a satire about our world, while Sucker of Souls wasn't satire at all. But it's not a very good one. For me it just felt kind of stupid. The animation style also wasn't very aesthetically pleasing for me. This also goes to D tier. Beyond the Killer Rift is one of the good episodes. It's about deep space horrors and what might happen when something goes wrong while traveling through space. It gives a strong alien movies vibes and that's a good thing. The main character wakes up from his cryosleep capsule on a spaceship just to realize that there was an incident which has thrown the spaceship far, far away from its course. All other people on board are still asleep, except this woman with whom this guy is familiar with. Long story short, they are having a relationship, but in the end it turns out that this woman is actually a monster alien, using the main character probably to use his life source. Her human look was only an illusion. Episode shows how she and everything else actually looks like. In this case it serves a purpose that this also shows a lot of love making. This makes the truth even more horrifying when it comes out. The animation style in this one is computer game-like and it really suits the atmosphere of the episode. It goes to S tier for me. Good Hunting is also one of the good episodes. Its premise joins the fantasy and sci-fi world in a weird way. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's very artistic in my opinion. The episode takes place in 19th century China and uses Chinese mythology. There are these shape-shifting foxes who make men to fall in love with them and lust for them. Then they shift to their animal form and murder those men. Main character is a grandson of a fox hunter, but he befriends one of them and helps her survive. I said that this joins fantasy and sci-fi. Here's the thing. Time flows extremely fast in this one. Technological progress comes very fast, and magic is being sucked out of the world. For our main character, that means that this fox can't use her animal form anymore, and she stays human and able to shapeshift anymore. Then our guy becomes an engineer and makes her robot body which can shapeshift again. I know, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but the episode is very artistic and interesting. The vibe and animation also were very good. I feel like this should go to A tier, just because it wasn't that smart, but is definitely good. The dump is a weird one, and it doesn't seem like that at the start. Its premise is that some government official comes to a dump to try to evict some local man who lives there. Then there is the story from the man who lives in the dump. It turns out that there is a monster living in this dump. When it consumed man's friend, the friend became a part of this monster. That's why the other man didn't kill this thing. It ends that this monster comes and consumes the government official. I guess the meaning of the story is that we kinda become the environment where we live in. Just like this monster is the dump itself, but I may be looking too deep into this. It didn't feel this way. The dump goes to see it here. Shapeshifters is one of the military-style episodes, which are several in the Love, Death and Robots series. Its premise is that there are werewolves in the US military. They are not liked by other personnel there. I guess that it's meant to be about racism in military, and while the message is good, that racism is bad, this episode isn't good. They basically fight in the Middle East against other werewolves. There are two main werewolf characters and one of them gets killed. The other one leaves army then because he doesn't feel appreciated. The episode tries to be heroic and smart, but it didn't feel to me like that in the end. It seemed kinda forced and dumb. There wasn't a real outcome here too. Shapeshifters goes to see it here. Helping Hand is one of those episodes that shows the details really matter. And I'm not talking about the art style. There is crisis for an astronaut in space. And to save herself she has to come up with the craziest idea. She is thrown in outer space because of a meteorite accident. Her air thrusters doesn't work anymore, so she can get back to the ship. Oxygen is running out and there isn't enough time left for the rescue. She's basically stranded to die. Her spacesuit was broken as a result of this accident, so her arm had to be left naked in the open space. This means that it is basically dead now and will be amputated if she survives. She comes up with an idea to break the arm off then and throw it to come up with the force which can push her back to the ship. Yeah, very brutal and also a cool story which uses physics of space. There's the Helping Hand. I'm putting this in A tier just because it wasn't that inspiring, but it's good. Fish Night is one of the artsy and beautiful episodes of the Love, Death and Robots. Its premise is that two men get stranded on a lonely highway in a desert. Arizona desert atmosphere here. This happens in 60s or 70s, so they don't have phones to get help. They decide to stay for the night. Then they wonder that this desert used to be an ocean floor a long time ago. During the night a ghost ocean reveals itself. There are all kinds of ocean ghost creatures. One of the men gets so excited that he becomes one with these ghosts and gets eaten by one of the ghost fish. Yeah, a pretty weird idea. It didn't feel that great although looked cool. This also goes to C tier. Lucky 13 is another military episode. It tells a story about military plane number 13. This is said to be a cursed one because plane's crew died, but the plane itself got restored. The main character gets to command this plane because she's a newbie. She has successful missions with it, so she in a way befriends this plane. But the plane is not really an animated live object here, it really is a plane. It just has this myth surrounding it. Then comes its last mission. It gets shut down, but Commander survives. Then she tries to blow up the plane to kill the enemy, but plane doesn't blow up when she wants it to blow up. It does eventually though, but in the right time to kill all enemy soldiers and save our main hero. This makes you question, was this just a coincidence or did the plane really have the mind on its own? I guess we will never know. Lucky 13 goes to B tier. Zima Blue is one of the best episodes of Love, Death and Robots. When I started to watch it I remember that I didn't like the art style that much, and I thought that I wouldn't like this episode, but I was so wrong. The episode is about a very famous artist who has completely modified his body to go to most severe places in space. He can literally walk through lava and be in an open space. He creates the art of space by literally being in these extreme places. This of course is sci-fi. Then a weird detail is introduced in his paintings. A blue rectangle in the middle of all of them. What is this? The episode goes on until this artist reveals his last work, and it is not a painting at all, it is a simple swimming pool. He jumps into the swimming pool and disintegrates into parts, revealing that he wasn't a human at all. Only a small swimming pool cleaning robot remains after this. His story is that he is actually a robot initially made to clean a swimming pool. Then inventor went on and added layers of features on top of the initial robot. And this continued throughout generations until he became conscious. And he started to look for meaning in this world. That's why he became an artist. But at the end of his journey he realized that the real meaning of his life was the simple task he was made to do initially, cleaning swimming pools. Blue rectangle in his paintings was a symbol of the swimming pool, so he disintegrated to become the original self, leaving behind his consciousness. The simple pleasure of doing simple tasks was the only thing he wanted after all those years. And Zima Blue is a color of swimming pool tiles. This episode is very philosophical. It asks very basic questions of humanity itself. What is our purpose? Also, it makes you appreciate simple pleasures in life. Maybe those are the most important ones actually. And it does it through this robot character. So this way we can kind of look at ourselves from a side, dissociate ourselves from him, at the same time being very close. This approach can make you see things more clearly. What can I say? This goes to S tier. Blindspot is about thieves trying to rob some delivery truck. This gives me strong Cyberpunk 2077 vibes, except this is bad. This truck they are trying to rob has serious security, and in the process only newbie survives, all others get killed. Characters in this one has heavily modified bodies. They are kind of more robot than human. In the end it turns out that they can be remade again because their minds have been uploaded in a program. The robbery in the end is a success. There is this sort of sad moment when newbie thinks that they all died, but then they come back to life through communication interface. I don't like this episode so much because it nullifies the meaning of death. Also, it doesn't explain did they survive this because those were copies of their mind in the program or they got transferred there when they died. If it's the first, then the upbeat tone in the end is simply stupid because previous versions of them really suffered brutal death and died for real. If it's the second, then they are immortals, and why would they even need this robbery? For me this doesn't work either way. This goes to Deet here. Ice Age is kind of gimmicky episode of a civilization in a freezer compartment of a fridge. There is this couple who moved in a new house and they discover civilization there. This is the only episode in whole Love, Death and Robots which features real actors. The couple observed this civilization while it goes through the same stages our civilization has gone through. It just copies basically our own history and it happens at a really fast rate, so they can observe all this in a day's time. At the end it becomes much more advanced than ours and some mysterious process happens. There is something like an explosion which is not really an explosion, and then the civilization disappears. It is very weird and it is not explained. Did it become one with the god? God being this couple who watched them all this time? I can't really tell, but I wasn't too impressed with the episode. However, it's not the worst also. It goes to C tier. Alternate Histories is an episode which markets itself as being an app for playing history. It uses Hitler's death to achieve this. What would have happened to the world if he died before becoming a dictator? The concept is fine and all, but the execution of this is simply awful. It tries really hard to come up with funny ways how to kill Hitler and funny outcomes as well, but it's not really that funny in the end. For me it felt like a very forced satire, which is awful. They really could have executed this idea better, but for me this may be the worst episode of the whole series. It most certainly goes to D tier. The Secret War is an episode about Soviet special forces fighting against demon monsters during the World War II. And this is a pretty good episode. I like how it merges the Soviet Second World War vibe with paranormal and cult stuff. There was special operation in Soviet Union which experimented with calling dark forces for help on the battlefield. Of course it miserably failed. Main heroes of the episode are the ones who come after the fact to deal with consequences. There is some pretty good drama between soldiers, but they all die in the end. However, they win because the territory where these creatures live is marked and planes come to bomb and destroy it. The episode makes you think about things which happen in the background during some important events. You never find out about stuff like that. It was set in the middle of the Second World War, but takes place deep into Russia itself, and is not connected to Germans at all. It is completely separate, but super important event. This episode goes to A tier. And this is it for the first season. Here comes the second season. Automated customer service is a satire about robots doing everything for us, also customer service, and it is very relevant topic because automated customer service is not a sci-fi anymore. The episode explores what happens when a vacuum cleaner goes rogue and tries to kill you, while customer service says to not worry and press 3 for other questions. It is pretty funny and good concept. In the end, our main hero kills the robot with some help, but then there are a lot more robots to deal with. It doesn't go deeper than that. It's a comedy and it's completely fine. This goes to A tier. Ice is an episode about teenager fitting in. There is this awful planet covered in eternal winter. The main hero's family moves there, but he is lonely because he has no friends. He doesn't fit in at all. Then his older brother invites him to watch together with brother's friends whale creatures who live on this planet. These whales are extremely dangerous because they are huge and break ocean ice to breathe in. If you are not careful and don't run fast enough, you may end up dead in the icy ocean. Main hero's brother injures his leg while whales break the ice, so he can't run fast enough anymore. But our main hero helps him and rescues him. This way he becomes kind of hero in this group and is not an outcast anymore. There is not much to say about this episode. It's not particularly good and not particularly bad. For me it was easily forgettable. It goes to B tier. Pop Squad has pronounced the 50s noir style and it is sci-fi. I love style like that. This is enough to set me up to like this episode, but it is much deeper than that. The episode is about police officer who specializes in a special kind of job, getting rid of children. Yes, you heard right. This is a terrible, terrible world depicted in this episode, but it's not happening just because to be edgy and dark. This is kind of an utopic world too, because everyone is immortal here and live lavish lives, so children are no more needed, and to give birth to them is a serious crime. However, our main hero is starting to have doubts about all this. There is no fulfillment in his life anymore because he has lived for too long. He finds a single mother outside his job to question her about why does she have her child. The woman answers that she doesn't wish to live forever and that through her child she can see and experience the world anew. Our hero leaves her then and doesn't do anything with this situation. However, his colleague had followed him and she is determined to do her job. In the end they both kill each other, but the child stays safe. This episode is amazing sci-fi. It asks really important questions. If we crack the mystery about immortality, what about our children then? Do we even need them? Should we stop technological progress to avoid bleak future like this? Is death required for fulfilling life? I can't answer any of this, but I can answer that this episode goes to S tier. Snow in the Desert is an episode about an immortal man who has a regeneration ability. If he loses a limb, it grows right back. Because of this, he is constantly being chased by bounty hunters and mercenaries who are trying to get biological samples from him to crack his secret of immortality. But our hero is kind of a badass. He kills everyone who wants to do him harm. But he is also an outcast and doesn't fit into mortal society. Then there is this woman who follows him and wants him to help research his ability voluntarily. They go to his home and kind of fall in love with each other. Then a very serious group of mercenaries come to kill him. The woman tries to protect him but dies in the process. The mercenaries get an upper hand, and when their leader is about to kill our main hero, the mysterious woman comes back to life and kills this mercenary. It turns out that she is not a real human at all, she is a robot. Our main hero may be a human, but he has something much more common with her: immortality. Then they stay together in a weird happily ever after way. This episode may deal with a similar topic as Pop Squad, but is completely about something else. It is about finding love in most unlikely circumstances and in most unlikely way. It's also about fitting in and finding someone who understands you. And immortality in this case is only a sci-fi tool to portray these ideas. The title Snow in the Desert refers to man's grey hair, because that is the only part of him which gets old and is completely white while he lives in the desert. This is also an S tier episode. The Tall Grass is basically a monster story about creatures in tall grass. There is a train who runs through these fields. The train stops and our main hero goes for a smoke outside of it while conductor tells him not to wander off. The man of course wanders off and meets these creatures, but in the end train's conductor saves him. This is not particularly smart or good episode, but I liked it because it had cool vibe of a train from 20s or 30s when this is taking place. Also, even in the end it has this mystery of what these creatures are, and that not all of the old folktales are lies. This goes to B tier. All Through the House is one of the shortest episodes in the whole series. It is an idea that Santa Claus is not an old man with a white beard who laughs, ho ho ho. It explores an idea that Santa is a terrible, terrible monster, but he still brings gifts to good children. Main heroes who are children catch this monster Santa in action, while it's delivering gifts, and in the end they get their gifts and survive, because they were good children throughout the year. But question remains, what would have happened if they had been bad kids? There is nothing much to say about this, but it has good question at the end. This also goes to B tier. Life Hatch is about crash-landed pilot who goes to a desolate shelter base on an empty planet. The base is fully automated and guarded by a big dog-like robot. Unfortunately for our pilot, there is damage here. An AI goes completely rogue, trying to kill our hero. There are pretty graphic scenes where his fingers get completely crushed when this robot steps on them. In the end, he finds a way to kill this creature and calls for help through radio. This is not that deep, but it also asks a relevant question: what if AI goes rogue and attacks us? This is one more episode going to B tier. The Drowned Giant is an episode about dead giant washed up on the shore somewhere in Great Britain. There is this scientist who comes to investigate the scene, and also this is a totally awful episode, one of the worst from the entire show. It is hard to tell which one is worse, alternate histories or this one. I don't like this episode so much because it tries to be super smart by using very poetic language and thoughts about the event. My problem with it is that it completely lacks substance. Form is totally dominating here, nothing really happens, the giant's body just rots over the time, and people get rid of its parts while our scientist is philosophing about it. He doesn't do any actual research to find something out. The better choice for this character would have been simply a poet. Another problem is that this happens in our time, not in the future, not in the past. Better choice would have been past, because people reacting to this thing were very unrealistic. Children were just playing on its dead body, and adults were coming to look at it and take pictures. This may have been more realistic if it happened at least 100 years ago, but not in this timeline. So many weird and unique episodes, but this may be the most unrealistic of them all. And it's not satire, it is try-hard poem in video format. certainly goes to Deet here. The third and last season at this time. Free Robots Exit Strategies is the only episode in the whole series which is a follow-up, and it is pretty similar to the first one. A satire about how our civilization died, and no, robots didn't kill us. We ourselves were responsible for this. At first they visit some survivalists' camp in countryside. It is full with the guns, traps, and has this zombie apocalypse vibe. Episode makes fun of hillbilly type people who actually want zombie apocalypse to happen. Then they move on to the place for millionaires. They try to survive by taking shelter in the ocean on repurposed oil rigs. They were marketing this as a millionaire's paradise in the middle of the ocean. It gives crypto tech influencer place vibes, and of course makes fun of them. Then they travel to underground bunker where government leaders took shelter, but they too all died. The last destination is abandoned spaceship port. This was meant for the most powerful and rich people to escape Earth. And we are not talking about millionaires and influencers here. These were meant for Elon Musk types. The only problem is that these spaceships never left. They all stand in this port, lost and lonely forever. However, free robots find footage of one spaceship leaving Earth. Episode goes on to make even more satire by letting us think that this person escaping was Elon Musk, but it turns out to be a cat. What did you expect? I didn't like this last joke that much, but all in all the episode is pretty solid, and I am putting this in A tier. Bad Traveling may seriously be the best episode of the whole series, however, competition is pretty fierce between the best episodes. In the third season though, this is certainly the best one. The episode is about old sailing ship. It is being attacked by a giant monster crab which kills half of the crew. Then it hides in cargo compartment while crew is thinking about what to do about the situation. Then one man is forced by a stronger man to go and see what the monster is doing. This man becomes the main hero of our story, and what a good character he is. There is a very disturbing horror part where the monster talks with this man through one of the dead sailor's bodies. It can use it to pronounce words, as it is not simply a monster but also a magical creature. It wants for the remaining crew to sail to a city where this crab wants to feed on people. Our main hero doesn't want for this to happen, so he does everything to stop the monster, and this includes very shady practices against the other remaining crew, basically sacrificing them to the monster. But no one is innocent in this episode. I'm not going to explain everything happening here, but trust me, it's very good. There are layers and layers of cunning and horror here. It also has a very strong Lovecraftian vibe of the monster, setting, colors and time period. The episode explores human nature and tells a very good drama and horror story. It feels like a lot of things happen during these 20-something minutes. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if a whole movie could be made out of this material. This is S tier. The very pulse of the machine has very beautiful art style. It is about crash-landed pilot whose partner dies in the crash. She is on a desolate planet and has to reach nearest shelter. The problem here is that her spacesuit is damaged and too much oxygen is gone. She can use her dead companion's suit though, which has enough oxygen left. Pilot then drags dead friend along on a metal scrap plate from the crash in order to survive. She can't change suits because spaceship is also badly damaged and there is no place to do it. Dragging a body along drains her strength, so she has to use drugs to make herself go. However, this approach makes her hallucinate until she can distinguish reality from illusions. She also hears her dead co-pilot talking to her. It ends with her oxygen source running out and she dives into some drug-induced hallucination lake and fuses with the planet itself. At this point it is not clear, is this a real place, an event or no? Did something special happen or she just died? It is not clear. Although the episode tries to be smart and ask important questions, it was too vague of what it really wanted out of itself. This goes to C tier. Night of the Mini Dead is just a demonstration of stop-motion animation with miniatures. It represents a zombie apocalypse, but there interesting parts end. This episode is literally just that, Earth dying because of zombies watched from a distance. There is no real plot here, there are no deeper questions. This goes to D tier for the lack of content. Kill Team Kill is an episode about fight against animal-like killer robot. It of course was created for military purposes and now it has gone rogue and is killing everything around it. Main heroes are military team sent to investigate this case. In the end they all get killed. This very much reminds me of the episode from the first season, Sucker of Souls. It has the same vibe as the Sucker of Souls, similar characters, similar language, similar outcome. And that is not a good thing. And don't get me wrong, I'm not against some rough jokes here, but there is absolutely no substance besides that. This goes to D tier, just a Sucker of Souls. Swarm is an episode about an anthill-like alien structure. This swarm exists in space for an eternity. The idea of it is that it has accumulated knowledge of all kinds of different aliens who visited or tried to fight with it. In fact, it works just like an anthill. Individual creatures living there don't have their own opinions, they just follow Swarm's communal mind and decisions. They are kind of like bio-robots. Then there are two people scientists who are trying to extract information from this swarm. The woman is kind of friends with this organism, but the new guy is very determined to gather all necessary information no matter what it takes, and no matter Swarm's interests. He is very ignorant. Things goes south because Swarm finds out about his plans. Then it captures the man and kills the woman. Idea here is pretty clear. People are ignorant and everywhere they go they bring destruction. People also has no chance against an organism like Swarm. It's just stupidity to think that they can outsmart the Swarm, who is literally an oracle-like figure. This is all good, but something about this episode wasn't to my liking. I guess the reason is the representation of the Swarm and the humans too. While the idea is good visually, the Swarm is too similar to some insect nest. It should have been very diverse if it really had accumulated countless alien civilizations. It also was too monster-like for human eye. They were trying to show the ignorance of people while being ignorant themselves by representing the Swarm this horror-like way. The problem with humans was that this was too straightforward, humans bad, Swarm good. But I guess I may be too harsh on this. This goes to B tier in my opinion, it's still worthwhile to see. Invaulted Halls and Tomb is basically a Lovecraftian story in its best way. It's not an actual Lovecraft story, but it follows the same concepts. Cults, monsters and sleeping monster go deep in caves. There is a military group which follows cultists going into caves. While being inside they discover terrible insect-like creatures which kill most of the team. Only two of them survive. They keep going to discover a bigger place where an enormous monster with 1,000 eyes is chained. This monster hypnotizes the surviving man to free it, but the woman doesn't succumb to creature's orders. She has to kill the man in order to save humanity. Then the episode hints that she might be the only survivor, but in the end the monster got her, and humanity could be doomed. It's a great horror episode on its own, but it lacks some deeper meaning to get into S tier. I'm putting this in A tier. Mason's Rats is a weird episode about farmer fighting rats in his barn. The twist here is that this farmer uses super advanced sci-fi killing robots to get rid of the rats. And this is due to the fact that these rats are developing their own civilization in man's barn, so he can't fight them with traditional means. What a weird concept. In the end the farmer sees a terrible war drama among rats fighting these robots and decides that enough is enough. He puts down the robot exterminator himself and becomes friends with these rats. This tries to be smart and funny, but I don't see the good in this episode. The more I think about it, the worse it gets. The episode completely brushes off the fact the farmer was the one who tried to kill the rats from the start. He called for the robots. They can't just be friends in the end just like that. This weren't some rogue like AI. It was an equipment doing its job. Also, no rats can develop their civilization undisturbed. What does this mean to the man? Is the farm going to be destroyed in the end? I know that this is a satire, but satire usually tries to make fun of some relevant actual problems, not rats developing civilizations in barns. This is not very good, but not the worst. Goes to see it here. The last episode is Gibraltar. It is very beautifully made, but very puzzling episode. Animation is great here. It is about Spanish conquistadors finding women like demon in the jungle. The demon has a lot of gold on her and they all want that, but she kills all of them by pulling and drowning them in the lake where she lives. She does that by terrible screams. She is some kind of siren or something like that. Only one man survives and fights with her. It's because he's deaf. He steals a lot of gold, but in the end he gets lost in the jungle and she gets him. I feel that there is a deeper meaning in this one, about stealing gold and something like that. But this episode is very vague and I don't really understand it. There is no dialogue here, everything is supposed to be clear just by visuals. I feel like maybe it's me in this case, but it wasn't interesting enough for me to try and figure this out. No matter how beautiful it is, for me this goes to D tier. So this is it. If you are into sci-fi, I recommend watching the show for yourself. Even the bad episodes, because they are short and you are not losing that much time. If you got to this part, thank you very much for sitting out this long video. Thank you for watching.